I don't normally get lonely when I'm riding my motorcycle. I get lonely when I'm with other people in big crowds and there's no one to talk to. That's when I get lonely. One of the reasons I enjoy long-distance motorcycle travel, one of the reasons that makes it possible for me, is because I don't get lonely easily. When I'm on the road, when I'm by myself on a motorcycle, I'm as happy as could be. I mean, really, there's no place for anyone else on the bike anyway, and I don't like riding with other people long distances across the country, so it's perfect. I get super lonely though when I walk into like a crowded event or something like that, and there's just no one to talk to, and I'm there by myself. Now, when I say there's no one to talk to, I mean there's hundreds or thousands of people to talk to, but I either don't know anyone or, everyone's doing their own thing and their own cliques and stuff like that, and I walk in and I'm just kind of alone and left to my own devices, and I'm no good when that happens. I should be at a motorcycle show right now. The One Moto show is happening in Portland, and I was there yesterday and it was a good time, and I went there this morning, but it was so crowded I couldn't even find a place to park, so I just kind of took off and said I'd go back later. Well, it's later, and instead of going back, I'm on Savi Island again, riding my motorcycle by myself, happy as could be, no place else in the world I'd rather be. And that's just kind of how I've become. That's what I've developed into as an older person and an older rider. I enjoy being alone when it's on my own terms. And I think that that's the key differentiator and the difference between me being lonely and happy. If it's on my own terms, if there's nothing else I can really do about it but just exist, then I'm happy as a clam. If there's something I can do about it, like, going up and talking to people, or hoping that someone will walk up and talk to me, or, not being socially anxious and antisocial as I can be sometimes, then I'm not happy. I'm anxious, socially anxious, and antisocial, kind of like what I just said. Does that make sense? When I'm on my motorcycle and I'm riding, especially when I'm out touring, doing a cross-country trip or whatever, I just don't get lonely. And part of the reason I don't get lonely is I know that I have someone to come home to, no matter what. Ladybug is going to be there for me at the end of the trip. Unless I go off and buy another motorcycle or something, and then all bets are off. Who knows what's going to happen? But in reality, I find it hard to be lonely on a long trip, knowing that it doesn't last forever. You know what I mean? It's a much different experience than walking into a social situation where you're supposed to, be social, and you either just don't feel like being social, or the social aspect of it just isn't happening for you even though you try, or whatever. That's deeply, deeply lonely for me, and I really try to avoid situations like that. One of the great pleasures of long-distance motorcycle travel is being alone and secure in your aloneness. And I don't want to say in your loneliness, because again, at least for me, it really isn't loneliness at all. I was at a motorcycle shop today getting some new tires on my Scrambler, and someone asked me about my trip, and then they said, "Are you going alone?" And I said, "Yeah." And there was just this look of surprise and almost fear that came over that person's face when I said that I was going alone. But then the guy behind me in line chimed in and said, "Yeah, that's the only way to do it." And I said, "Yeah, that is the only way to do it, really. I'm not saying someday I wouldn't mind going across the country with a friend or two or something like that. It'd be kind of fun in its own way. But oh man, do I love and crave the time I have to myself when I'm on a long trip. Again, knowing that there's someone to come home to at the end of it means that I'm not sitting there pining away for human connections and, I don't know, stuff like that. I'm existing at a time and a place that just feels right. And I'm not wanting for anything else. I'm not wanting for human connection, overly. I really enjoy meeting people along the way. Just people that you're gonna hang out with for a half hour or whatever, talk some stuff about motorcycles, and then go about your business. I don't want to be tied down, but I don't need constant companionship. God, sometimes that's the last thing in the world that I want. I'm sure you can relate to that, right? There are times, even when you're not riding, where you just feel like you just need some alone time. You go into a room, close the door, turn on some music, read a book, just to be by yourself, or even hop in bed and pull the covers over your head for half an hour. Sometimes this is just the thing you gotta do. For me, riding alone on motorcycle journeys is pulling the blanket over my head for a little while, ignoring the outside world, and just existing for myself. Oh, God, I crave that. If you're thinking about doing any sort of long-distance motorcycle trip, and you're worried about doing it alone, don't let the loneliness be the thing that stops you. There are so many things that you can do to prevent the loneliness. One thing that I do, if I even think that there's a chance I'm going to be lonely, and even if there isn't, I have this little inReach satellite communicator that I take with me, my Garmin, and I take it mostly for emergencies. If I'm out of cell phone range and something happens, I can press a button and I'll have help coming to me. It'll probably cost me $60,000, but at least I'll, get out of a sticky situation. But the other nice thing about it is, no matter what, no matter where, if I want to fire off a message to Ladybug and see what's going on, see how she's doing, see how the world is doing, I can do that. I don't have to. It's not as easy as picking up the phone and, sending a text message. And so it's not as convenient, so it doesn't happen as often, which is nice. But to know that you can, to know that you do, no matter what, have a human connection if you need it, that's another cure for loneliness, as strange as that might sound. The other thing I do to prevent loneliness, and your mileage may vary on this one, I love to talk to myself. I really do. I will tell myself a story. I'll make up a story as I go. I'll talk about the things that I'm seeing. Ladybug likes to read signs when we're together in a car, and it drives me absolutely wild, crazy nuts. What? When I'm by myself, I like to read a sign out loud sometimes, to myself. I have no one to annoy. Another thing I do to prevent loneliness on the road, and this might be controversial because I know some of you hate this, but I like to listen to music. I listen to music a lot when I'm riding, because pretty much two of my favorite things in the world are riding a motorcycle and listening to music. And to be able to do both of them at the same time is a special kind of heaven for me. I know that a lot of folks think that it's either dangerous or distracting or, ruins the solitude of riding a motorcycle. But for me, it relieves the burden of the solitude sometimes. It's just something to keep your mind engaged, especially, you can listen to a podcast or something, but that feels a little dry to me. It feels a little sterile. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like listening to good music. Music and motorcycles go together. And there's nothing I really love more than a nice, hot summer day. The sun's blaring, and so is the music. And you're just riding down the road and you don't care about nothing. That's heaven to me. And music is a big part of that. Again, your mileage may vary. Some people really hate the music. I get that. Another thing that's probably reasonably controversial that people will say, oh my God, I absolutely hate that whole idea. But, hear me out. I like to check in with work. Not every day. At least once a week. I like to know what's going on in that world because that is a huge part of my world. And I hate to feel disconnected from my work people. My work people are part of my family. And I need to know what's going on. I'm not obsessing over it. I'm not sitting there actually doing work. I'm, if an emergency came up, I'd jump in and do it, but I'm not doing any sort of day-to-day work, and I'm not, trying to hear the minutia. I just want to know how people are doing. I want to know that the organization is still doing good, that there's nothing major going on, because I don't like the unknown. I bet you right now a lot of people are cringing, thinking, how could you possibly want to think about work when you're on a motorcycle adventure? Well, I have to say that I have the privilege of working with some really great people at an organization that I love, doing a job that I love, so it's just not a burden for me. It's not taxing in any way to check in and see how things are doing. These people are my friends. I love them, and that's just the way it is. If you don't feel that way about your work, then I totally get wanting to check out completely and not check in with your work folks. But for me, it's different. The other thing I do to prevent loneliness on the road is not check in with toxic people. Don't check in with people in your life who are toxic. There's nothing that'll bum you out and feel like you need to talk to someone real. Nothing worse than checking in with someone who's just a toxic human being. We all have them in our lives. Most of the time it's unavoidable. But those are the people that you don't have to check in with when you're on a motorcycle adventure. You could just let that shit go until you get home and not even think about it. Because again, the more you think about it, the more you check in, the more they bum you out, the more you're going to feel lonely and feel like you need to reach out to someone who actually cares to talk about it. And if those people aren't around, or you don't have a connection or whatever, then you're going to feel lonely. So just cut that shit out of your life, at least for your trip. And then when you get home, then reevaluate whether that person, those people, should be in your life at all. Anyway, what do you do to stave off the loneliness when you're on a long motorcycle ride? You get any tips? Do you even get lonely? Or are you like me and you're just kind of like, I enjoy being by myself? Let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear your story. Oh my god, we're back at the very beginning. What a country. I'll catch you on the next one.